Good morning, everybody. Welcome.
Morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Hi, good
Hi.
morning.
Good
Hi,
morning.
Hi.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We will take some seconds. I don't want to say minutes to let people in. My clock has just turned.
Teresa, I think you've been muted.
Here I am back. Here I am back. Good morning. Welcome to those who are still connecting. I will slowly start kicking off today's European Lighting Forum. This is a frequent appointment, of events that Lighting Europe is organizing, publicly available, accessible to all those along the lighting value chain who are interested on the topics that we want to discuss. So today, as you know, we will talk in particular about, and we will present to this large audience, we will present our technical memorandum on specific rules for life cycle assessment. I'm speaking a bit slowly, as you may notice, because I want to allow as many people as possible to join us. I'm Teresa Selvaggia, I'm Director of Public Affairs at Lighting Europe. Lighting Europe is the European Association of the Lighting Manufacturing Industry. Welcome again to all of you who are joining us. So, before we start, I need to draw your attention on at least the core principle of our Code of Business Conduct. We need to comply to competition law. So when you participate in a meeting of Lighting Europe, including this webinar, we have to make sure that no sensitive information from the commercial or competitive point of view are shared. So even when, for example, you leave a comment or a question in these kind of events, pay attention to this aspect. And if you have doubts, please feel free to contact us, me, other staff members, and we will guide you in this respect. Also, some more housekeeping rules to allow a smooth organization of the webinar today. So we invite all of you to turn off webcams and the microphones, especially during the presentation by our speaker. Also, we warmly invite you to leave us your comments and your questions, and to do that, you can use the chat box that you can see here in the virtual room. Make sure that when you connect to this webinar, your name and surname are clearly displayed and shown. In fact, we will absolutely prioritize questions that are received from people that display clearly name and surname, and possibly also the affiliation. This webinar is recorded, so if you remain connected to the webinar, this means that you accept that your image is used. Artificial intelligence tools are not allowed, so as I said, the webinar is anyway recorded. The recording and the slides will be shared with the participants afterwards, but also will be made available on our website. And last but not least, we always encourage you to leave us your feedback on this event. You can find the link here, but also my colleagues will share it during the webinar itself. So, why are we here today talking about rules for developing LCAs on lighting products? Well, there are several reasons for doing that. Lighting Europe, in reality, has been active already for some time, some years on this topic. We are really striving for harmonizing LCA rules as much as possible for the lighting sector. Why? First of all, there is an increased demand from the market. Our speaker later will go more in the details. But at the same time, we need reliable sustainability information. it's a need and a request that we are receiving daily. And I'm sure that many of you who are connecting today to this webinar will agree with us. There is at the same time a lack of harmonization on these rules. A bit more concretely, the activities that LightingEurope has been and is carrying out on this topic. First of all, our experts contributed in the past years, in particular to the revision of the PSR 014 for luminaires developed by the program operator Pepco Passport. Then the attention has moved to components level. So today, as I said, we have the pleasure to present to you all the technical memorandum that has been developed for control gears. Also, there are ongoing works on the technical memorandum for light sources, and I can say that here the works are quite advanced. And again, for the sake of harmonization, we are looking and collaborating also at the global level with international standardization bodies, the Global Lighting Association, and we are looking with big attention to mutual recognition agreements by program operators. Now I have the pleasure to introduce you our speaker today, Dee Dentenier. Dee is Director of Standards and Regulation in Signify. He is a very active member of the Working Group Sustainability of LightingEurope, and in particular, he is chairing and leading the works of the Task Force for Product-Specific Rules. He has a very long-lasting experience in the field, and among other things, is member of the technical committee of the PEP Association and also actively contributing to the works of EcoPlatform. And now, Dee, I have the pleasure to leave the floor to you, including the sharing of the screen. Here is Dee Dentenier appearing. Please, Dee, the floor is yours. And please unmute yourself. We need to hear you.
I'll do that again. Hey, thank you, Teresa, for this excellent presentation. Here we have the, I hope you can all see this, the product-specific rules, the rules, guidelines, and requirements for producing EPDs of control gears that I will be talking about today. Teresa, thanks for your excellent presentation and introduction. And there's going to be a repeat of a lot you say, but a bit more detail. In fact, I would, if I manage to go to the, I would like to talk about the background, product-specific rules for lighting products, why that is relevant, why we need harmonization of environmental product declarations in the industry. Then I'll zoom in on the work that we've done, the specific rules for life cycle assessment of control gears for light sources, and provide some of the technical details in this document. And I will talk about the relevance to the industry and all applicants. I'm doing this as the chair, as Teresa already indicated, of the Task Force Product-Specific Rules operational in LightingEurope. This is a work of many, so I'm presenting on behalf of all of the participants in this task force and the Working Group Sustainability more general. Okay, first for some background. What are we talking about? We're talking about life cycle assessments, and I want to make it very clear, life cycle assessments is a very versatile methodology to investigate environmental impacts of products. And you can do life cycle assessments with many objectives. But one specific objective you have in doing a life cycle assessment could be to produce an environmental product declaration. It's a standardized and verified document that summarizes the environmental performance of a product's life cycle. If you do the life cycle assessment in order to produce an environmental product declaration, then a whole set of standards kick in, are relevant, and these are called product category rules and product specific rules. These are there to harmonize the approach to environmental product declarations, and these are exactly the topics of today's speech. Why are these then so relevant, these environmental product declarations? Well, we see that is a growing trend in the lighting industry. There's a lot of customer demand for that. They're the most universally recognized document to talk about, to assess the environmental impacts of your product. They're standardized in that aspect, and there's a lot of demand for that in the market, a demand that we as a lighting industry must follow. There's also somewhat in the background, regulation is playing a role. There's an expectation that publication of life cycle-based impact data, environmental product declarations may become a legally binding requirement. And we see this already happening in other corners of different industries, specifically in the construction industry with the construction product regulation. They're moving towards mandatory sort of EPDs. And it is not unimaginable that the lighting industry, electronics industry will follow suit in a somewhat later stage. Maybe also to the point is when looking at the manufacturers themselves, they realize that this approach is scientifically sound. It's based on open standards. It leverages a lot of input and understanding already developed in other industry. It covers all life cycle stages. And of course, there's a verification step by experts which adds extra credits of credibility to the environmental product declaration. Therefore, companies also believe that doing these LCAs, these environmental product declarations, they can improve their products and services and improve their environmental performance. Recent studies also reveal that the amount of environmental product declarations in the lighting industry is rapidly increasing, and that's also a reason for relevance. And Lighting Europe has been quick to realize the importance of this all and provided several LCA and EPD trainings to its members. These two background slides I just shown are just 2 out of, say, 200 slides. And those who are not fully versed in this art of LCA and EPD are really encouraged to have a look at that. The trainings may be consulted from the Lighting Europe's website, and I readily advise you to do so. Okay, somewhat more background. Next to early on understanding the relevance of life cycle assessment and environmental product declarations, Lighting Europe also early on identified concern, and that is a lack of harmonization of the EPD practice in the lighting industry. And so a lot of models apply when creating an environmental product declaration. It particularly relates then to events that take place after the manufacture of the product. And these are, for instance, the usage scenarios. If everybody has his own take on such scenarios, EPD is going to be totally incomparable, and that's going to be detrimental to their use in practice. So to address this, Lighting Europe early on collaborated with a program operator which had a program for luminaire environmental product declarations, PEP Eco Passport, and we supported the review of the PEP PSR 0014 for luminaires. And the PSR, they are product-specific rules. They detail the rules and requirements and guidelines for an EPD of a luminaire. And they complement what we call core rules, product category rules, that establish the rules and guidelines on a more general product level, say for electronic products or for construction products. Okay, these rules were published in 2023, and they were quite successful in the market. We've seen many EPDs, or PEPs as they are called in the PEP ecosystem, being published by, and there's considerable adoption by manufacturers. In Lighting Europe, we've also done the promotion of the product-specific rules through webinars, trainings, and other means to inform you about that. And we've also moved to IEC standardization. Definitely, we see the works in Lighting Europe as a prequel to IEC standardization to move up and to harmonize the practice not only at European but also at international level. And the PSR 0014, and these product-specific rules for luminaires, were published as IEC publicly available specification, and there's currently a committee drafting product-specific rules for luminaires and standardizing this. But doing this, we also identified additional needs, and that is rules, requirements, and guidelines to conduct LCA and make EPDs for core luminaire components, the light source and the control gear for the light source. Light source, of course, you know that, lamps, LED modules, and the control gear, the unit inserted between the power supply and the light sources to serve the light sources with their rated voltage and current. And it's relevant to create these EPDs for light sources and the control gears, of course, as EPDs themselves, because they are products and you would like to assess their environmental performance in a standardized way, but also as an aid to develop EPDs for luminaires, as the EPDs for the components can be used in the creation in the EPDs for luminaires. How far have we progressed with that? We are doing pretty well, I would say. We have created the technical memorandum specific rules for the life cycle assessment of control gears for light sources. It's completed, and the drafting process has included an intensive review by members of LightingEurope, leading manufacturers, and major program operators, because in the end they have to adopt such rules and allow them into their programs for control gears. We're in the process of developing the specific rules for life cycle assessment of light sources, and we're well on our way with that. As Teresa mentioned, we're currently doing within the task force the final editing, I would say, resolving editorial comments to harmonize the various bits and parts of the document, and then we can open it up for review to our full membership. It is to say that these technical memorandums take a little bit a different route than those we took with the PSR for luminaires. They are developed independently of any core PCR, and therefore they're allowed usage with different core PCRs. You can say about EN 15804 or EN 5693, IEC 63366, or any of the core PCRs by the program operators. Again, they are there for submission to IEC standardization, and definitely we would allow adoption by all interested program operators, and we definitely drive to that. And events like these are there to promote these rules and to promote them to the interested program operators and to promote them to the manufacturers. Okay, let me then talk a little bit more about the specific rules themselves. What do they look like? Then first, we must say a thing briefly, mention a number of things briefly about the design criteria, I would say, for such product-specific rules. And these we followed when creating the rules, are sometimes used to decide on the course to go. And they should be usable in conjunction with the most relevant core PCRs. I think that's very important. We would like to promote adoption by many program operators. They should be relevant to the construction industry, so can be used in conjunction with EN 15804, but they are also relevant to the electronics industry, and you should be able to use them in conjunction to the IEC core PCR. We should also meet there the requirements on product-specific rules as set out in these core PCRs. For instance, IEC 63366 has an extensive section on requirements on PSRs. And following this, interpreting this, you see that there should be a focus on the scope. What products are we talking about? The definitions that go with that, definition of functional unit, declare unit, and also with use scenarios. That's particularly important there. There should be consistency with the approach in PSR 0014, both in the sense that the EPDs for control gears should be usable in the context of PSR 0014, but also that they're sort of logically aligned and follow the same design principles. And also we try to mandate that technical data that is needed to prepare to calculate the scenarios in the EPD are documented in the EPD, and that they're consistent with the technical data sheet, but that the EPD need not necessarily contain more information, because that's a nuisance only. Okay, what are we talking then about? It's scope, it's the control gears, and that's a unit that's inserted between the power supply and at least one of the light sources, and which serves to supply the light source with their rated volume and current, and which can consist of one or more separate components. Such a control gear can be integral to a luminaire or located remotely from a luminaire, as we typically have it in a downlight. You see the two situations depicted here. In one case, the control gear is within the luminaire, and in the other situation with the downlight, the control gear is remote from the luminaire. These are all in scope of this document. Control gears that are totally integrated in a light source are not within the scope of this technical memorandum. They're considered in the PSR, in the technical memorandum for light sources, where we consider lamps. Okay, when doing the environmental product declaration and the calculations required therein, we need to be clear at what setting we consider the control gear. Some control gears deliver a fixed current or a fixed voltage to the light source, and there the setting is easy. Some and most of the control gears these days are programmable, and they can be programmed to a particular voltage and current setting. And then we mandate that the calculations are done at the maximum voltage and current setting, delivering the maximum power to the light source. You can see that also here in the equations. So the output power of the control gear is of course, the output voltage times the output current, and that is then taken at its maximal point. We also there need to define the input power to the control gear to realize this output power, and these two are related by the control gear efficiency, as you also see depicted in the last equation. This then depicts a control gear without power cut. There are also control gears with a power cut, where there is no single point of maximum power delivery, but rather that is a continuous curve. And there the technical memorandum describes that you can take any setting on this curve of maximum output power and take the encompassing efficiency. We also talk about lifetime in these specific rules. The assigned lifetime of the control gear is the life expectancy as declared by the manufacturer according to the operating conditions of use provided by them, depending on the maximum power and the operating temperature. It is in terms of hours of operation and a given failure rate. And the reference conditions shall be specified in the technical data sheet. The conversion of, there's also a need in EPDs to report in years of operation, and that's often dependence on core PCRs, which come from the construction industry, we made that easy here in the sense that whenever we need to report because of requirements in the core PCRs in terms of years of operation, we do that by converting hours of operations into years of operations by dividing by the number of hours in a year. And again, there must be justification of the assigned lifetime in the LCA report. Okay, with these definitions in mind, we can then come to what we call the functional unit, declared unit. The functional unit is to provide 10 watts of power to a light source during a reference lifetime of 35,000 hours. And here really the alignment with the specific rules for the luminaires kick in, because there of old we have a provision of 1,000 lumens during a reference lifetime of 35,000 hours, and that of course matches with modern LED technology, more or less with a provision of 10 watts of power. So there's a light alignment there. Those we should understand functional unit that provides a quantification of the performance of the product, and it provides a unit of comparison. So how much of the product do you need to deliver this service? And environmental impacts are related to this unit of performance. And so that makes a necessary, a precondition, so to speak, for comparison of products. We also talk about the declared unit. Basically, that's the environmental impacts of the product, a control gear, providing its maximum power to a light source during its assigned lifetime. That's the overall impact during its assigned lifetime, evaluated at the maximum power. And of course, the environmental impacts of the functional unit are related to the environmental impacts of the declared unit by normalizing to the environment, to the performance described in the functional unit. What does it take? What amount of product does it take to provide the 10 watts of power to 35,000 hours? We look then, and that's one of the core parts of the technical memorandum, into the use scenario. Typically in the standards there are various elements in the use stage, term B1 to B7. In the specific rules, we state that only the B6, the energy needs during use stage, are relevant and need to be considered in the environmental product declaration. How does that then work? And here we see the equation. So the energy consumption of a dimmer control gear over its assigned lifetime, expressed in kilowatts per hour, is calculated by multiplying the input power with the assigned lifetime and the theoretical energy saving coefficient. And the theoretical energy saving coefficient is there to represent the gains, the energy gains that you get from dimming capability of the control gear. It's again set in alignment with the product-specific rules for luminaires, and it is 0.75 for autonomous time-based dimming, and it's 0.5 for a dimmable control gear that can be connected to a light management system and thus enable daylight control and presence control and what have you more in terms of intelligent algorithms to reduce the energy consumption during the lifetime of a product, of a lighting product. Okay, then we come to the conclusion of this webinar, relevance to industry and applicants. We can say here that lighting is a considerable market, and EPDs are becoming increasingly more important to the lighting industry. Lighting component EPDs will be a strong enabler for luminaire EPDs, and harmonization will further improve the uptake of EPDs. I would like to reformulate that as such. Lighting is a big market, and a strong and growing interest in EPDs exists in this market. And I would expect many EPDs to appear in this area. But it will only go well if the industry aligns around a common approach and it adheres to common rules and guidelines. Harmonization is key to the success of EPDs as a tool to report about environmental performance. And this presentation, and also in Teresa's words, we have highlighted the efforts in lighting industry, in Lighting Europe, to help the market to move to such a common approach. We talked about product-specific rules for luminaires. We talked about an endeavor to set rules, requirements, and guidelines for control gears. And these rules, requirements for control gear are relevant as well as to produce EPDs for the products themselves, for the control gear themselves, as to help develop EPDs for luminaires. But in the end, Lighting Europe can help, but these markets organize themselves. They are have all the program operators have an assignment to make their own, create the rules for their own programs. And therefore, also this presentation is a call to action. Manufacturers are strongly encouraged to consider specific rules for life cycle assessment and control for light source for their EPDs, and to push their suppliers to implement these rules. Drive a common approach together. And to help this, of course, the rules are freely available to any and all LCA program operator and standards development organization without limitations. We make our works freely available to help the market establish this common approach. With these words, Teresa, Simon, I've made my statements, and I would like to hand back. Thanks you all for your attention, and Simon, we can go back to you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dee. This was a very insightful presentation, and we're very happy to have you here presenting today. Yes, as you already just said, this set of rules is freely available, and you held it in the camera, and maybe some people have asked themselves, how do I get my hands on my own set of rules? You can do this via the Lighting Europe website. You can see it now on the screen. You go to our website, you click on the section of our guidelines, and there you could find the section on the specific rules for life cycle assessment of control gears. There's a little download box on the right, and there our set of rules is freely available for download. And yes, as Dee also said, we really encourage everyone to have a look at them, to integrate them, and of course, if in a manner you deem most appropriate, reference, of course, the work done by Lighting Europe. But of course, we also invite feedback and questions from all interested organizations, and that's also what we hope to do right now, which is inviting questions, and I've seen already some questions come in. Let's maybe give people a quick moment to also formulate their questions, and I want to take this opportunity quickly to also thank all the members again of our task force PSR who have worked on delivering this wonderful document. As Dee also said, this is a group effort, and I'm very happy that there are also some people in this webinar who have contributed so greatly to these rules. Okay, let us now jump into the question. So a question that we received on the difference between PEP EcoPassport PSR for luminaires and the technical memorandum in PSR 0014. There's a loss rate for manufacturing mentioned. In the technical memorandum for control gears, this is not the case. Is it correct to say that this loss rate is specific for the luminaire manufacturing and therefore not for control gears? IEC 63366 is also not mentioning a loss rate. Then there's also a second question. Does a luminaire manufacturer need to use the loss rate from all supplied components, only from the own manufacturing then?
Hey, thanks for this question, and I hope that many of the task force are here, and in replying to these technical questions, I hope they will chime in if I'm a bit hesitant about that. The loss rates were indeed a difficult matter. We think that in practice the loss rates are not a real problem. All manufacturers will know about their loss rates in their manufacturing plans, and they will have documented these and will be able to provide the right figures to go into their documents. So in practice, loss rates is not so much an issue. In the PSR for luminaires, we argued like, hey, let's put it really high because as a default, because we had to say something about that in relation to the PCR. We put it really high with the understanding, well, everybody will know how to deal with this number, and having a really high default is not so much a problem. We then understood from some of the manufacturers that still the scope of this loss rates in the product specific rules for luminaires was not always clear, and some of the verifiers would argue that these loss rates would also have to be applied then back in the supply chain and going on in the supply chain, and that was not what we wanted, and therefore we took a little bit of different stance in the technical memorandum from control gears. And so that explains the difference there. And if you say, hey, that is not fully in direct alignment, then I think that is sharply spotted. And there we took a little bit of different direction maybe in the PSR 014 because of further and developing insights. I hope that has answered the question.
Thank you very much. The next question is specifically on the energy consumption formula. So in this formula, does the theoretical energy saving coefficient reflect the average real dimming profile observed in a typical application, or is it a fixed normative value defined independently of actual use conditions?
Yeah, basically it's the latter. So it's a coefficient you have to apply, and so you could argue that's the latter. Of course, we have in defining these coefficients looked extensively in the literature about actual energy savings, and there we see that these coefficients are not too far off from what is reported in the industry. So you could also argue, although in a very lightweight manner, that it is the first. So you could argue both, but I think formally the second viewpoint is best. I myself always argue like, hey, it's really important that we have this coefficient to highlight the importance of energy saving. And the value is taken with reference to what we see in the in actual reports and studies about this. So that's what's important. It's also there to make life easy. So we didn't want to go into the into very application dependent type of coefficients, which would definitely also not be known at the time of the production of the EPD. I would also like to add there, in conclusion of maybe too many words here, that the energy consumption of control gear, of course, is there to produce the EPD, to compare products. But when moving to the luminaire, again, it will be reassessed, because in the luminaire you will know the application settings and you will adapt the calculations as of per PSR 014 to these settings. And then again, these energy calculations in the luminaire EPD are relevant to compare luminaires, but when moving to a building level, again, you will have to reassess that, because there you know more about the application behavior, and that will allow you to better tailor the energy consumption calculations to that exact application. Too many words, Simon. I'm sorry for that, but it's
No.
a topic close to my heart. And
I think now we are at the exact right time for the too many words. I think this also already covers a bit the second question that was put in. That was put part of this question on the 0.5 value. Just to clarify, is this based on statistical data from real operations, or is this merely a recommended assumption?
Yeah, It's not an assumption. It's a value that goes into calculation, makes the calculation really simple. However, the value has been selected so that it reflects somewhat average of many studies that we've consulted when doing this. I believe that some references are there in the PSR, and
Okay, perfect. Another question that we received, is there a plan to address the harmonization for sensors integrated in luminaires?
Not yet. So that's a good question. We identified as core components the control gear and the light sources. We also rely here on evidence from European studies. There's been a European project on LCAs quite some time ago. They identified definitely the control gear and the light source as core components. And therefore, we zoomed in on these first, and it's our first assignment to make the rules for these. Definitely, you could look at other electronic components like sensors. We haven't figured that out. I'm also not entirely sure whether that maybe has already been covered in different industries and that we can take it from there. You could also imagine that in the security industry, they have been considering as sensor type devices and how to produce EPDs for that. So we're not fully there yet up to speed with the full context of that in other industries, and we haven't decided yet to go there. It's possible, but definitely not yet discussed.
Thank you very much again. At the moment, that's it for the questions. We have some time to spare though, so I would really encourage everyone to send your questions still in. Maybe we can take this moment. Is there anything you would still like to address, to maybe go into some more details on something that you also covered today?
Well, that is a bit open-ended. Simon, you asked do you have another presentation about LCAs and EPDs that you could run through? Yes, I can. But yeah, today I wanted to stick to the control gear EPDs, present context and what is in these in the specification, and call the industry to action to look at this. That is the purpose of today. Look into these specific rules for control gears. If you see problems, let us know. But please drive the industry to use this, because we believe it's essential that manufacturers, program operators, software providers converge on the same approach. I'm absolutely convinced it's going to be a mess if you do different calculations, different ways of calculations in similar documents. It's going to confuse our consumers, and it's going to produce loss of faith in environmental product declarations. I think they are very valuable. That's my personal and honest belief. I think we should be careful in setting our course to produce these environmental product declarations. So if I would expand on something, then it is on that. And it's also that we're going to gauge what is being produced in terms of environmental product declarations. Are they trustworthy? Do we understand differences between environmental product declarations? And can we, maybe in times future, provide more guidelines there? But I definitely do not feel that I should say more about the rules themselves. So thank you for that invitation, Simon.
No. But we have some more questions coming in. So when a control gear is integral to a luminaire, where exactly is the LCA system boundary drawn? Do we include connection elements and housing, or is it the electronic driver components only?
Yeah, that is a good point. So we say that it is stated in the rules. We say that everything that is essential to to install the control gear is of course included in the environmental product declaration. I myself am a strong believer in what's in the box should be in the EPD. So if it's always shipped with the control gear, then it should be in the EPD. And then of course when it's included in the luminaire, they should include all the components necessary to install the control gear in the luminaire. But for the control gears, EPDs, if it's shipped with the EPD, if it's shipped with the control gear, then it should be on the EPD. If it's not, it's best to go there with the luminaire EPD.
Thank you very much. Maybe something more procedural. Do you hope to take the control gear PSR to IEC, or do you first need to see PO adoption?
Yeah, we say we do that. We still have to decide the detailed timing of this. So definitely we believe, and the program operators have also been involved in the review of these rules. Definitely we would like to see adoption now. Moving to IEC, opening it up to IEC will also be a means to explain to the program operators that we see this as the route towards standardization. So that will also help them to be convinced of the rules. But definitely IEC standardization has a somewhat longer time path, and I think we need these rules now, and that's why we publish them now and open up this call to action right now.
Thank you very much. Another question specifically now on the B6. So how can a luminaire manufacturer easily deduct the B6 stage and end-of-life impact when importing the EPD impact of a driver in a luminaire EPD calculation?
Yeah, so for B6 it is clear. You have to do the recalculation based on the application settings. So usually the control gear are not used at the point of maximum output power. They will be set to whatever is required by the light source. We don't know that at time of manufacture of the control gear. Therefore, we've taken the route we've taken. Of course, in the luminaire EPD, you will have to do the recalculation, and you can find then the technical data in the data sheet of the control gear. But you cannot just copy this, unfortunately. For end-of-life type of data, it's easier. That will typically go into the end-of-life of the luminaire and could be added to the end-of-life of the other components, parts of the luminaire.
Thank you very much. Another question, as there is currently the IEC standard for luminaire in preparation and it is strongly based on the PEP EcoPassport PSR, would it make sense to remove the loss rate or define it more clearly so that this is not affecting the supply chain? Currently the draft is containing the exact same wording as the PEP EcoPassport PSR.
Sorry, that is I didn't follow, Simon.
Sorry, I can repeat. So, as there's currently the IEC standard for luminaires in preparation and it is strongly based on the PEP EcoPassport PSR, would it make sense to take the loss rate out or define it more clearly so that it is not affecting the supply chain? Currently, the draft contains the exact same wording.
Yeah. So let me be clear here. Well, I'm not in IEC, so we have published the PEP PSR as IEC publicly available specification, but the IEC in setting its standard does its own thing. So they make a standard according to their own rules and insights. By making this as a publicly available specification, of course, it becomes a relevant basis to consider when making this IEC standard. But I cannot say what IEC will or will not do. I would rather refrain from that.
Then maybe we move to another question. If a control gear includes components that may require software updates or recalibration, could that introduce a maintenance scenario B2 in future revisions of this document?
That could be. We have not discussed that, I must honestly say, and therefore it's difficult for me to comment on the potential environmental impact of this. And but it could be that at some point in time, maintenance becomes a environmentally relevant activity, and that it has to be included in the EPD. But I currently have no view on that, and it's not been discussed.
Thank you. Then another question: could these rules also be applied to evaluate emergency control gears?
Yes. So for currently emergency luminaires, they're still out of the scope of the luminaire PSR that we produced. For emergency control gear, I must say I do not see a real case why to exclude this, and it's also in scope. So I would say yes.
Thank you very much for that as well. So I think this covers it for at least the time being. There's now a comment in the chat regarding processes in IEC. In the absence of a standard for the PSR for control gear, IEC 63366 is directly applicable for control gear 2. And that's why a recommendation is stated to start IEC standardization of PSR for control gear at once. Yes, I think for the time being, it's fine to not discuss the intentions of the IEC, since this is not necessarily within the scope of our activities. Okay, are there any further questions to D? Now is the time. So far, I see nothing. We still have a bit of time to spend, so if there are any further questions, then we're happy to receive them. Are there plans to make these technical memoranda publicly accessible, or will they remain internal guidance for program operators? I think we've talked about this, that these rules are publicly accessible via our website. And we, of course, hope for broad interest. Follow-up question: when the technical memorandum for light sources is completed, will there be a plan to harmonize both documents, control gears and light sources, under a unified PSR for luminaires?
Is that a question to me?
I would say so.
I would say that at Lighting Europe level, we haven't discussed it. I would presumably not advocate this. I think that program operators or IEC may want to package these things in a somewhat more coherent document and whatever they find convenient. It's not for us to decide. We deliver the bits and pieces. And I think that these organizations that need to adopt this will have their own ways of organizing the material and making it easily available to their customers. And it's not for us to do that. There are many ways you can do that, and I believe that that is fine. And we leave that to all these organizations.
Thank you very much. Okay, then I think we can conclude this very, very interesting Q&A session. Thank you very much for everyone who posed some questions. It's always much appreciated. With that, I would like to thank everyone today for joining today's webinar. Also, again, massive thanks to Dee, our speaker, who prepared, with the help, of course, of also some members of our wonderful task force, PSR, a very, very insightful webinar. So I hope that everyone's interest has been piqued and you stay tuned for more events in the future. So it's always worthwhile looking at the Lighting Europe website. Please feel free to contact our colleague Ilana if you would like to be invited for future events. And there's also been a survey, a link to a survey which was shared also in the chat. And we would really strongly encourage everyone to follow up on that as well. So thank you very much and have a good rest of the day.